76 characters, 2.5 hours, a $300 million budget. Avengers Infinity War is a film at least 5 years in the making. From the birth of Favreau and Downey's Iron Man to the assembly of the Avengers, the destruction of S.H.I.E.L.D., the expansion into the cosmos, and the massive shift in the cultural landscape, the road to Infinity War has been an arduous journey. But here we are, on the precipice of a cinematic event, one for the ages. The idea of eventizing a film like this was not new by any means. Films like Return of the King, The Deathly Hallows, and The Force Awakens were built on this idea of tying a story together based on the cumulative narrative foundation. But I think Infinity War was one of the first times that this sensationalism was so widespread. Fandango crashes, sold out theaters, worldwide press junkets. Going to Infinity War wasn't a casual thing you did to spend the day. It was a full-on experience. And I think it's safe to say the movie lived up to it. This film was a centerpiece of the zeitgeist. For at least a month after its release, the MCU rose to the peak of popularity and it kicked butt at the box office. Most importantly, the movie itself was really good, instantly becoming one of my favorite Marvel films of all time. But how? How was this film able to satisfyingly pull together the entire MCU for a singular climactic event? How does this film keep our interest focused on the story of our core characters while jumping around so many storylines? And most importantly, how did this film, this event that was supposed to be this finale to a 10-year journey, still leave me hungry for more from this intricately crafted universe? On a basic level, Infinity War works because of one core reason: the buildup of the MCU. A movie of this scale and grandeur would be meaningless without more than a dozen films behind it. This universe has put in the work for the past decade, and its reward is this tense, fast-paced 2.5-hour epic. But it's not just the plot. It's not just the fact that we see Thanos a couple times before. It's not just the occasional use of an Infinity Stone as a MacGuffin. It's about character work and organically fitting a story like this into their emotional journey. But it's not necessarily an even balance of characters. The film prioritizes some over others. While some of our heroes go on a grand journey of discovery, some carry simple but effective traits that stay attuned to their ideologies while maintaining a small scope of plot. It's interesting to look back on Captain America's story throughout the MCU up till this movie as an example of this. When Infinity War came out, one of the only criticisms for this film was that Steve didn't have much to do during the entire story. We entered to see Cap die or something, and instead he was just kind of a side character, playing his part to help stop the Purple Titan. Coming off his trilogy, I think people wanted another poignant story through the morals of the super soldier. But honestly, I'm glad Cap takes a backseat during this film. Throughout most of these movies, Steve Rogers keeps a rigid and consistent ideology built on a strong set of morals he refuses to compromise to satisfy any agenda. It's what makes him sneak behind enemy lines and save 200 many soldiers. It's what causes him to take down Hydra regardless of S.H.I.E.L.D., and it's what convinces him to plant his foot into the ground, refuse the Sokovia Accords, and save his friend. With Infinity War, there's one moral that defines his decisions.
We don't trade lives, Vision.
Like Ethan Hunt, he'll do everything he can to stop the death of even one innocent life. It's a simple character beat that works perfectly for Steve. We just roll with the story from there. We don't need him to go on this grand journey of self-discovery because he knows who he is, we know who he is, and that small concept is enough for us to keep in touch with this character throughout the film. In this movie so epic as Infinity War, the Russos choose to make Captain America a side character, and that's something that can only be earned after you spend 2 brilliant movies defining Steve Rogers while deconstructing the world around him. I feel like Infinity War's greatest achievement comes in its time management skills. That's kind of a weird statement, but hear me out. This film is able to balance its immense roster of characters and at least 4 interwoven storylines, not only by dividing and comboing up characters from various corners of the universe, but by converging the storylines as the movie gradually continues. People seem to forget that we don't just start off with our teams fully established. We start off with Thor in space, Iron Man and the Wizards in New York, Wanda and Vision in Scotland, and the Guardians goofing around in space. Not to mention Thanos and his conquest. Even after that, we watch the Guardians split off with Thor, Team Iron Man heading off into space, the Wakandans entering the fray, and Gamora heading off with Thanos on her own individual plotline. There are so many characters, storylines, and arcs at play here, and it's amazing that this isn't a complete narrative failure. But I think the secret is in the most essential element of this film, the Infinity Stone that keeps it all together. The pacing. Walking into these movies, we kinda know where these characters are in their lives, but Infinity War chooses to take that extra step to reaffirm us with our heroes. During the first and second acts of this film, while we get scenes with these various characters, we're not cutting back and forth between every single person to figure out where they are. When we're with Tony, we're with Tony for at least 20 minutes or more. When we're with Thor and the Guardians, we stay with them for about 15 minutes to fix their dynamic together. It isn't a quick scene and done kind of situation, but it also doesn't drag on for too long. These separate plot lines aren't just added to pad out the runtime. We spend enough time with these characters that we feel invested in their story, but not so much as to forget the other various stories. And the best thing with doing this during the first half of the movie is that right after this stage is done and the battle truly begins, the plot lines and arcs finally converge onto each other like a triple layer cheeseburger. Cap and the Wakandans start their one-sided game of Capture the Vision. Team Iron Man and Team Guardians forge together to fight Thanos in one of my favorite fights from the MCU. And finally, Thor lands in Wakanda to save the day as the theater crowds scream at the top of their lungs. By the climax of the film, all the reserved cards are left face up on the table as a dozen plot lines from the MCU come down to one horrifying scene as Thanos rips through our heroes, nearing the end of his journey. Let's talk about that ending for a bit. All of our essential characters go through a similar journey throughout this film. We start in the mild peace, the calm before the invisible storm. In a moment, it all changes and they're called to action. Throughout the second act, there's this sense of despair, but we get little pockets of hope to hold on to. So we chase those leads, we go on that journey, we fight for a winning chance. But after that round of chess is over, they're left right where they were at the beginning. Despair. So in that despair, they make the ultimate sacrifice, only to lose and feel the failure with the force of a dying star. Strange sacrificing the stone, Vision dying twice, and Thor missing the mark are three perfect climactic anchors for the end of this journey. At the end of the day, our heroes never stood a chance. They were never truly focused, never truly united. And so no matter what lengths they go, Strange, Wanda, Thor, it doesn't matter. It amounts to nothing. The end is inevitable, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. And thus the decimation ensues. Half the population gone in a matter of minutes. But for a second, it's hard not to be taken out of the cinematic experience of it all. Spider-Man, Black Panther, and the Guardians, they've got movies, franchises, box office to break for the next 10 years. How are we supposed to be invested in this scene if it's safe to assume that none of this is permanent? But that's not the point. It's not about our reaction to our fallen heroes. It's about theirs. As the champions of this world fade to dust, we slowly pan and switch towards the survivors, looking down, aghast expressions stretched across their face. Groot to Rocket, Sam to Rhodey, Okoye to T'Challa, Peter to Tony. We watch in horror as our heroes' loved ones disappear before their eyes. Our core Avengers, the six we followed from the very beginning, have finally lost, and this time it's cost them everything. Friends, family, surrogates, gone just like that, because this time they couldn't stop the bad guy. The last 3 minutes of this film slap us in the face with that realization in a way I don't think any film has ever done, even today. The storylines, the character work, the pacing, it all serves to shock us, to snap us into this new reality of loss. And like our heroes, we just sit in our seats with one major thought.
Oh, God.
Infinity War at its core is about the journey towards failure and how regardless of however much change you make along the way, failure is always a real possibility, a very, very real possibility. It's enthralling, exciting, awe-inducing to go on this grand journey with a massive cast of characters, a neat and tight plan, and a driving spirit, but sometimes you fail. And sometimes that failure comes with pain that's hard to swallow. Sometimes standing up for what's right isn't enough, and sometimes the good guys just lose. but you don't lose hope. Loss is a powerful tool, but it won't be used to annihilate our spirits. We will be back with a vengeance, ready to put our lives on the lines for the ones we love, the ones we've lost, ready to make a true final stand against a tyrannical titan, ready to save the world once again. Some people give up.
Not us.
Whatever it takes.